Well, and I'm looking at the clock, Brandon. We have to move on into the West. It's fine. It's one of these things where there are so many teams and so little time. I don't think you guys want to hear us talk for 10 hours. Maybe you do talk for 10 hours on SEC football. But with the West, I mean, I look at the time we just spent talking about the East. I go, oh, we're almost at 40. We're like 3 minutes shy of 40 minutes, maybe even closer to 40 than that. And we just talked about 3 teams. Well, this West is even more stacked.
I know.
Mean, do we have to spend time on Alabama? Only because I'm saying Alabama's the favorite. They're always the favorite. They're always going to be the favorite. They're going to be the favorite 50 years from now, it seems like. They're the lock for the college football playoff
I do have a question for you.
I
do have a question for you with Alabama. With Alabama defensively, with what happened in the offseason, does that plague them at all?
You're talking about the Cam Robinson thing?
With the suspensions that weren't suspensions because they weren't ever charged because the prosecutor did not want them to be outside any more than they had to be. He wanted them to get into the air conditioning. I'm not kidding. That's almost a direct quote. I just want to have your take on that part. Does that affect them at all? Does that affect their play? Does that affect how Nick Saban goes about it? Because I don't think it does.
I don't think it does either. But, however, I will go into... I am very disappointed in Nick Saban. I think suspensions need to be had. I want to commend, actually, now that you brought that up, I want to commend, and I know that he doesn't need my commending, but Paul Feinbaum, or as Brandon thought his name was, Paul Finnebaum.
I thought that for a long time. I didn't watch his show enough, clearly.
Paul Feinbaum was perfect at the SEC media days, asking the hard questions that needed to be answered of Nick Saban. Why aren't you suspending these kids? Why aren't you? Me and you talked about it when it happened. And what did I say? I said you need to suspend Cam Robinson. He's the big one. I know there were more players than that. You need to suspend Cam Robinson for at least some games. I don't even give a shit if it's the games that you're supposed to win. Stand in there, suspend them, and I know that there's going to be people on the other side of, Ricky, well, the head coach should be like a father figure and should be like, oh, come here, it's okay. Sometimes you need to be stern and you need to say, this ain't allowed. I know with me, and maybe it's because my background, my parents, if I did something I wasn't supposed to, I didn't get a hug. I didn't say, oh, everything's going to be okay, you did something wrong. No, I got disciplined, and it made me see, oh, shit, maybe I shouldn't do that anymore. For them, it's sitting out football games. You take away what they love, they'll never do anything wrong again. Well, maybe not, but that's the thinking I'm going with.
And I'm on the other side of Ricky saying that, yes, there needs to be some sort of punishment, but not necessarily into the game. I think that Nick Saban, he didn't get to be a good coach in college football without knowing what he needs to do. And he knows that he needs to keep his guys out there to win. His best guys need to be out there to win. I don't think that he didn't go into his office with those guys and say, what the hell are you guys doing? This can't happen. If it does, we're actually going to have to do something here. But they didn't find anything legally. They did not charge him legally. No need to charge them then via a school punishment or an athletic punishment or anything like that. I don't think so. I don't think you do that. But we're on two different sides of this, and we did talk about that. But I think that... Go ahead.
Because you brought it up, I pulled up the quote, the exchange between Saban and Feinbaum, and it's kind of the same thing we're kind of going through right now, where Saban just said what you said, and I quote, if they really did something wrong, they would have been charged with something. You know what Feinbaum said back? Debatable. I kind of agree with him. Debatable. And then Saban went on to say, do we condone that behavior? No. But you're innocent until proven guilty in this country, regardless if you get convicted in the media or not, which is what you're doing. And then Feinbaum responded by asking why he didn't suspend either player. And then Saban said, because I'm not going to convict them in public, I was going to get criticized by you and the public and the media because I'm not going to suspend him, and I don't really care about that. That's the end of the conversation. And that last part, end quote, by the way, that part I didn't like from Nick Saban. I'm fine with the explanation. Tomato, tomato, we disagree. I think he should be suspended. You don't. It's your football program. I don't run Alabama Crimson Tide football. However, the way Nick Saban, you guys can watch it. Go online, watch the exchange between them. The way he's like, and that's the end of the conversation, is like you're not talking to a kid, Nick. You're not talking to one of your football players. You're not talking to a 10-year-old. You're talking to an adult. That's the way I kind of saw it, of when Nick Saban to the media goes, that's the end of the conversation. It's like talking to a kid where it's like, that's it. That's all I've got to say. You're not getting the last word.
Well, I do have to say I can understand what he's saying in the sense of, and that's the end of the conversation, because if he doesn't say that, and even by saying that, there will be other people from the media who will try and finagle in a question that deals with those guys. And after a while, you're there not to talk about that anymore. You're there to talk about Alabama football, not things that may or may not have happened with guys in Alabama football. You're there to then talk about your team, talk about the season, and talk about things like that. Mm-hmm. It gets annoying. I know as someone, a sports lover who's watching a press conference like that, I start to get annoyed. I'm like, he said stop asking the questions. It's done. Stop. It's really getting annoying because I'm not getting any other information from anything else.
If it's getting annoying, you want to know my advice for Nick Saban? Watch as much film of Bill Belichick in press conferences and just do that. Doesn't get the bill. Well, Bill kind of gets upset, but he doesn't yell back at the media. See, that's the thing with Nick Saban that I see is I think there's a legit disdain from Nick Saban towards the media.
Well, there probably is for a lot of guys. I mean, look at guys throughout the NBA, throughout the MLB, the NFL. There are a lot of guys who can't stand the media. I mean, you take a look at Marshawn Lynch. He couldn't stand the media. He would not talk to them. He couldn't stand them.
Was that a not standing the media, or was that because he had like anxiety issues and didn't like talking to people?
Well, I don't think he could stand the media because of the fact that he had the anxiety issues of not wanting to talk to them. And they wanted him to talk to them.
Well, I think it was more the NFL. The NFL wanted him to be there. The media was like,
whatever.
Oh, we just want to talk
whatever, either way. But then you look at the NBA. There's a ton of guys in the NBA who hate the media. Hate them. But I think that really it all comes down to this is year number 10 for Nick Saban in Tuscaloosa.
Better part of a decade, yeah.
And they have the biggest target on their back this year because most people expect them to win it again.
Can I ask you a question?
I suppose so.
This is going to be Ricky taking a quote from a SEC quarterback out of context, but then I'm going to ask you a question about it. Basically, at SEC Media Days, Chad Kelly, quarterback for the Ole Miss Rebels, basically said, and I quote, "I'm the best quarterback in the nation." Brandon, what do you think?
Well, right now, he's probably the best quarterback out of him and any quarterback on Alabama.
What about Deshaun Watson? That's the big one everyone's comparing him to now because we said that.
We saw Chad Kelly last year. We saw what Kelly did. Did he have a good season? Yes, he did. He had a good season. But he didn't have anywhere near the season that Deshaun Watson had. And if he wants to say that he's the best quarterback in the SEC, okay. You may have something there, but if he wants to go out and he wants to say, again,
best quarterback in the nation is what he said.
If he wants to say that, I know. If he wants to say that, I'm just saying.
I know.
If you look at the SEC, then yes, he may have a case for himself. But if he's saying,
you could say the SEC is its own nation.
If he's saying in the nation, he better be able to back it up with the stats. And if he can't, then you are dumb, kid.
You are dumb, kid.
That's all I got. Because I love it. I love it because it's so funny when guys will come out, we win in the Super Bowl this year, or we win in this year.
Vince Young and his dream team?
you're an idiot because you're not.
Charles Barkley in 93 saying God wants us to win this title, and then Michael Jordan says, no, here you go, Paxton. 3-pointer. We winning this.
But you know what I mean?
Oh,
is
I know
that
what you
guys
mean,
come
yeah.
out and say stupid stuff like that all the time. And if I'm their coach, I'm going, no.
You want to know the way I see it? Would you like to know the way I see it?
Ricky, we always want to know the way you see it. We're still waiting for the show, The Way I See It, with Ricky Widmer.
It's in production. It's coming. Not anytime soon, but it's on the burner. It's a slow burn.
Hasn't quite hit the climax yet.
But the way I see it is this is just a guy who's jealous, trying to get at an old teammate of his or a former team of his because he used to be a Clemson Tiger. That's all it is.
Yeah.
That's all it is. Him just kind of throwing some flack at Clemson because he's upset with Clemson because he obviously left them for Ole Miss. Do I think he's the best quarterback in the nation? No. Go back and play. I want to say it was the Arkansas game from last year where he had, whatever game last year, he had like 5 interceptions and it wasn't good. Quarterbacks who are the best in the nation don't have those games. They have maybe 2 interceptions, 3 interception games, and that's the worst. I'm looking at Matt Ryan and saying, oh, well, he's the best in the nation. No, he's thrown 5 interceptions in a game. Can't be the best. However, he did win that game against Drew Brees and the Saints. That's a random fact of the day from Ricky. But no, with Old Miss, I mean, both of these teams that were at the top of the East, Alabama, they've got the Cam Robinson kind of cloud hanging over them. Old Miss, they've got this, and I think this compiles, like you said, if you were the head coach, if you were Hugh Freeze, you'd be going, no, don't say that. Don't say that. Just shut up right now.
It's like
kid.
when
Just
you
shut
say
up.
that I think this team is going to win
The Super Bowl.
Yeah, and then you're like, and then
title.
every fan is like, Ricky, you son of a bitch.
Why do you think I've never openly said? I will not say what Mike Rankin has said. I will not declare my baseball team as whatever championship they play for. I can't even say it because I don't want to curse them. But I think that this also is one of those things where it's like, really, you're going to say this when the big thing about your team is all the drama that happened after draft night about your team with Laramie Tunsil and Hugh Freeze and the organization giving them money, and you've got an investigation that might be coming down on your school, your football program, and then you go out and say this and just put more attention. It's like, oh, let's just take that magnifying glass and put it right over the Ole Miss Rebels.
Yeah, and I think that that's a problem. I mean, you take a look at him, and now let's move into Ole Miss a little bit here.
Okay.
Chad Kelly threw for over 4,000 yards, 4,042 to be exact last year, 31 touchdowns. 31 touchdowns, and he's returning. He's a top quarterback in the SEC.
He's not the best, but he's one of the best.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, he's good. No, but he is the top quarterback in the SEC. I'll give him that. But he's got a lot of other good quarterbacks to go around when he talks nation. But also, Laramie Tunsil wasn't there the whole season last year, but he returned latter half of the season, returns from his suspension, and was a great protector of the blind side for Kelly. You know, does he have that this season? Greg Little, true freshman, is going to take that spot, and he's going to have to be good. Hugh Freeze likes him a lot. But Kelly, who knows if he has that same success again this year? Does he put up over 4,000 yards and 31 touchdowns this year? I don't think so. I don't think so. I think he's going to be, I think he's going to be around 3,500 and 25 to 27 touchdowns. So he's still good, but he's a little lower. That's what I think. Because
you just said Chad Kelly not going to have the same numbers as last year. That's my biggest question with LSU. Is Leonard Fournette, we saw him kind of tail off at the end of last year. Is he going to have the same numbers? Is that team going to be competitive? Because to me, there's 4 teams in this division. Alabama, Ole Miss, Arkansas, LSU. Those are the ones I'm looking at. I know War Eagle, you guys are sitting there saying,
they're trying.
Well, we could be there. Yeah, you could. You guys usually surprise me every once in a while. Mississippi State, you did good 2 years ago. You didn't do that great last year. The fall off has happened. And then Texas A&M, you guys are falling faster than Johnny Manziel's NFL career, to put it into a Texas A&M related joke there. But to me, it's a 4-team race. However, that 4-team is really a 2-team race because it's Alabama, Ole Miss. Arkansas may surprise. LSU could be in the running, but I think when it's all said and done, we're going to be looking at the Alabama Ole Miss game as the game that helped either one of those two get into the SEC title game.
I agree. I think that there's going to be. I agree with you with the teams that you talked about. I think that really with this Ole Miss team, Chad Kelly's going to still be good, but he loses a big key. He loses a big weapon in Laquan Treadwell.
Now playing for my Vikings.
Gone. And I think that's huge. I mean, that is a huge hole to fill at wide receiver. They have good depth, but Laquan Treadwell he was really, really good. Mm-hmm. I think that ultimately Ole Miss is still going to be one of the top dogs on the West side, but is there a team better than them that takes them over on the West? Because obviously you look at Alabama at the top, and then do you put LSU as number 2 there?
To me, I don't know. I literally don't know, because to me, the big question is LSU and Arkansas. What are we going to see from them this season? What are we going to see from them this season? Because with LSU, the big question mark to me is quarterback. You guys know me. I love looking at the offense. It's usually the first thing I look at because I'm an offensive-minded guy. Yeah, you are bringing back Harris from last year, Brandon Harris, that is. I think he's going to be the starter. There is no way I feel confident in LSU if the Purdue transfer Danny Etling is anywhere near that football, because guess what? I'm a Big Ten guy, and I've seen Danny Etling play. That's why I said with Appleby, don't let him touch the football, because guess what? Purdue wasn't that good. But the whole thing is, if Brandon Harris can show development and Fournette, see, the thing about Fournette, and I know everyone's saying it, it's not a huge concern to me, but you got to bring it up, is with his workload, is he getting too much of a workload in college, and is that going to hurt LSU? I say if he's giving it all he's got and he's winning a game, give him the ball. Give him the ball. If he's the guy that's going to win the game, give him the ball. Do whatever's going to win you the games. However, I look at that team and I just go, the question at quarterback, can Brandon Harris be the guy? And then, just like we talked about with inconsistencies for Kentucky earlier in the podcast, LSU is going to have their 3rd defensive coordinator in 3 seasons. That ain't good. That's inconsistency on defense. And if that's the case, Chad Kelly is going to light you up.
I think that this defense actually is going to be one of the best. They return 10 starters, and I think that that's really good. You kind of keep the core intact, and that's going to be huge for LSU. I think offensively, yes, they need to get better behind the quarterback position and the wide receivers. Leonard Fournette's going to carry this offense, but how far does he carry them? We saw how far he could carry them last year. We saw how he played against Alabama when he went up against at the time, Kirby Smart defense, no longer there, but it's still an Alabama defense. Mm-hmm. I think really, at the end of the day, what other pieces can you put around Leonard Fournette? You hardly ever hear that. It's like, what other pieces can you put around your quarterback? But who else can you provide to Leonard Fournette?
Leonard Fournette is the quarterback. He is the quarterback. And the one thing I want to ask you about their defense is, do you think it's going to be a big deal that for the first time in the Les Miles era, their LSU, that is going to be a 3-4 defense and not a 4-3?
Yeah, I think that's going to be interesting. We're going to be really, I think most people are going to be kind of seeing how this 3-4 works under Dave Aranda. That's going to be, I think, a crucial point that people will look at. How big of a difference is it? How are people able to adjust to it? How are the guys able to adjust? And how well does this match up against offenses? Now, if all of a sudden, the first couple of games, they're getting shredded on defense, they're going to go, what's going on? But I don't think so. People look at Aranda as one of the top coordinator hires in the offseason. So I think that they're going to actually see some really good things out of that defense, which, again, I said already had 10 guys returning.
I'm hoping the West is competitive. I'll tell you that, because I think Alabama's going to be good. I think Ole Miss is going to be good. It's going to be interesting to see how the talks of all the drama that happened post-NFL draft, if that's going to pick up at all and affect them into the season. Then Arkansas, I gave a sleeper for the East. I'm going to give a sleeper for the West. Arkansas is my sleeper. I mean, they've got their offensive coordinator, Dan Enyos. It's going to be his second season. They're going to have a new starting quarterback, so they'll probably lean a little bit more on the run game. But I look at Brett Bielema and I go, when are you going to do it? When are you going to make the move and be competitive? And you could say, well, Ricky, they were 8-5 last year, 5-3. You know what? If you're not in the talk to win the division, you're not competing in the SEC. That's just how it goes. LSU, I think, will be competitive, but I think it's another 5-3 year for them. Maybe 6-2. I mean, it depends on the Arkansas game. I don't think they beat Alabama. Don't think they beat Ole Miss. And with Ole Miss, Alabama, I think it comes down to that game. Whoever wins that game is going to be in the SEC title game.
Yeah, I look at Arkansas again as a team, even at the end of last year, a team that I'm looking at going, wow, this Arkansas team's having a really good finish and ultimately put together a pretty decent season. You look at what they started at, 2-4. They weren't on the map with anybody. They ended up going 8-5. 8-5. That's pretty good. 5-3 in the SEC. But I think that the biggest thing for me, how do you replace Brandon Allen?
Yep.
How do you replace Brandon Allen? All SEC quarterback. What happens with him? If you can replace him and if you're able to get consistency then from that position, you look at Arkansas as a team that's going to be right up there with the rest of them. Possibly could even overtake an Ole Miss team. Who knows? But I think that Arkansas definitely, I'm with you. If you want to talk about a team that's going to be a sleeper, kind of, because I think people kind of know about Arkansas a little bit, but yeah, they're the team to go with.
I'm saying sleeper to the Giants. That's what I'm saying. Like the Alabamas, the Ole Misses.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, obviously the true sleeper is Auburn, because this is going to be a year that they fucking turn it on and then they return a kick in the Iron Bowl that they shouldn't have gotten, and then somehow get into the national title picture and shock the world. I don't know.
Austin Allen, the younger brother of Brandon Allen, going to be starting now in place of him. So if Austin
just
Allen
keep the lineage alive.
Yeah, if Austin Allen's anything like Brandon Allen, I think they'll be okay. So he saw time in 3 games last season, and he completed 1 pass in 3 attempts for 35 yards and a touchdown. Boom. It's going to be they're going to be just fine.